so, so good evening, and Tenzin and I are very happy to see all of you. And again, we wish we were doing this in person, but we've prepared some slides so we can walk through the workshop more easily. And let us know in the chat. There's the chat function in Zoom if you have some questions or you need to ask us to repeat something. So this is as Seton explained, there are multiple sessions and components of the sustainability phase. So there is pedagogy. There's also content with the content unit leaders, which is physics, biology, neuroscience. There's the research component that's being led by Nicole Gerardo and Robin. There's the philosophy of science, and then the integration of Buddhism and science. So so Tenzin and I are leading the pedagogy session, and that's what we will be talking about today. So what we would like you to do is use the chat function and just introduce yourself. Just a couple of minutes, you can just use that so we are all familiar with using the chat.
The slide color timana the chat now social meaning the teacher. The slide color the annotation you are the pajama.
We have someone from Bhutan also.
Yes.
From Serge,
yeah, Tenzin Sonam from Bhutan. So he's a new teacher at Tachilimbo.
Gandhin Sharze, Gandhi Changze, Kumang. Okay, and then you can go to the next slide.
So I think we have introduced ourselves, but we'll just state our names again. So I'm Meena Balgopal, and I'm a professor in Colorado. You can see I put a big blue star on the map over on the western side of the US.
Yeah, and my name is Tenzin Sonam. I'm currently working as a research scientist for the Sea Learning program, but I'm also supporting the pedagogy component of the ETSI sustainability phase.
Yes, and actually Tenzin and I have a different content background. My PhD is in biology, and Tenzin, your background is in engineering.
Physical science.
Yeah. Okay.
So I did my PhD in teaching and teacher education with focus on science education in general. And okay. It seems like people have finished typing in, so I'll go to the next slide. So here, again, I want all of you to type in your responses. So the prompt here is we are asking you which of the following image or images might need scientific understanding. So you will see these different images here, and below each image, you'll see a number, right? And we want you to identify, there's no correct answer here, and there are multiple answers. So whatever numbers you think, that needs scientific understanding, you can type that in the chat. And then after that, we would like some of you to, turn on your microphone and maybe, okay, we have people saying number 3. There's some saying all the pictures need scientific understanding. Tilde says 1, 4, and 5. Chamba Kejo says 4. Ngao Nobu says 1, 4, and 5. Geshe Tabgila says all. Rangdul La says 1, 3, and 5. Okay, so if we are in person, I think we're going to have a lot of discussion about this. So given we have, because of we are doing this online, so as people type in, I would like maybe, some of who are saying all, maybe if they want to share, why do they think that all of these images need some kind of scientific understanding?
Maybe then Sonam, you can pick.
Okay, yeah, but I just want to invite, because I know this is the first session, so I think everyone is a little bit. If you wish, you can. I'll just say some names and maybe. Is it Pasanla? I think he said all.
Hi. So I said all because any scientific, anything, any activities needs a logic. So whatever you do in case of here, whether you are debating, there is a logic, whether you are doing the experiments or obviously all 1, 4, and 5, they need scientific understandings. And if you look at the 3 days, mixtures of things where you have to mix in the proportion, that means it's scientific in nature. So at the 6th one also, where if you have to for the sangsur and everything, you have to burn the incense and all, so all of those needs a scientific background. There is a logic behind everything. So I think all of them need some kind of a scientific understanding.
Thank you so much, Pasanla. And then Kusho Wangdela, do you want to respond? You have 1, 3, 4, and 5, and why you didn't pick 2 and 6?
Okay, so in my point of view, I picked 1, 3, 4, 5, but 4 and 6, I'm kind of a little bit odd because to debate and you don't need to collect data science and some sort of things. But for example, the third pictures, we are saying that making dough or making bread, but if you miss the chemistry of ingredients, then your bread will be some sort of uncooked or roasted something.
Okay. Yeah. Now, if anyone wants to respond, I won't pick anyone. I don't like doing that. So if anybody else, one last person, anyone wants to share, you can just unmute and.
Yes, I want.
Sure.
So I choose the number 1 and 5.
1 and 5.
Yeah. So what I thought is the number 1 and number 5 is the 5 is more related with the doctor.
Mm-hmm.
And the number 1 is something is fixing.
Mm-hmm.
So these 2 is more background of scientific thought. So is it more related with the physical, things to fixing up something. So the number 2 and 3 and 4 and 6 is not necessary to have a scientific thought.
Okay. Meena, do you want to respond anything?
Yeah, so the reason that Tenzin and I asked you to start with this is that if you are going to be teaching science to your students, that it's very important to stop and think about what your own definition and understanding of science is. So you need to start with that. And we selected these images because in the broadest sense, they can all require some logic or scientific reasoning. So we may think that it is only based on some equipment or some experiments, but really we could argue that all of them require some type of scientific reasoning. So, but most importantly, we want you to stop and think first about what your own ideas of science are before you begin teaching.
Yeah, and also I just want to say that, I mean, as we bring science into the monastic community, I think there'll be many ways. I mean, science might be a little different than what it used to be in a school science setting. I mean, when we learn science in a school setting, so as you bring science into monasteries, I think there will be some kind of change due to the context there. So I think we need to think about science as more inclusive and something that's not something that's brought from outside into the monastery. So it's something that's already there within the monastery. So that's how we want to get started. I mean, that's how, okay, I think we spent too much time here. I'll go to the next slide, yeah.
So we would like you to, just like we asked you to first identify your own ideas, we want to model this so that you have some ways you can do this with your own students. So we would like you to, in your own notebook or paper, whatever you have with you, write down how you would define learning. What does learning mean? Have you had a chance to put some ideas down?
Yeah, we'll give you another 30 seconds.
Okay.
Okay, I'll move to the next slide now.
Okay, so we have three big ideas that we would like to share about what is learning. There are many ideas about learning, but we just have identified three big ideas. But to understand this, we first must know that to be a good teacher, you need to know how people learn. And so thinking about different ways of learning, one type of learning involves memorization, which is important because then we can recall knowledge, but it's not the only way that we learn. So remember that beyond memorization is deep learning. So learning in order to understand knowledge that's necessary to solve problems. So it's both memorization and deep learning.
Can I move on?
Yeah, I think so.
So, I mean, I just want to tell everyone, I mean, we're trying to make this session as much engaging as we can. So there'll be a lot of things we'll be asking you to do rather than us telling what things are. So for the next one, we have a poll and maybe Kamala can get the polls up in a minute. So the question here is, if water represents your students' knowledge, what best describes your belief about students whom you are or will be teaching science? So the options are 1, 2, 3, and then 1 and 2, or 1, 3, or 1, 2, and 3. So what is?
Here's the poll.
Yeah. So you can see the poll here. So you can whatever is. I mean, there's no correct answer here. So whatever is your response, you can select your response here. 42% has voted, so I'll wait another 15 seconds.
Does 1 to D means either 1 or 2?
Yes.
Yeah, 1 and 2.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, as the polls are coming up, I think there are still people voting. So I just want to tell you that, I mean, it seems most of the people, I think they go with number F. So students come with different levels of understanding or knowledge in their classroom. So
Can you show the poll results?
Yeah, they are out of 44, only 34 has, yeah.
yeah, 34 has voted. Oh, you're not able to see them. Are you able to see the poll results now?
Yeah, I'll share.
Okay.
Can you see it? Can you see
Most of them have responded F. So like there are some students who are who have no knowledge at all, and then some who have a little bit of knowledge, and then some who have much more knowledge. So I think, but I mean, since we are teaching science, I mean, some of the topics, I mean, students might have. I mean, again, I mean, going back to the first picture that we showed, I mean, science can, I mean, people experience science every day, so kind of assuming that students doesn't have any knowledge at all might not be the right assumptions. So I know many people have responded 1, 2, and 3, the F option, which is, I mean, some students have no knowledge about whatever they're teaching. So I think maybe that's something we need to think about, and that's something we'll be discussing as we go through these slides. Yeah, and go through this session. Okay, so I'll close this poll. Yeah. So here we're using this metaphor of the mandala. So I mean, as you all can read, we construct new knowledge on prior knowledge. So whenever you have built a new understanding, there's already some existing, I mean, understanding, knowledge, some kind of knowledge within the student that needs to be, I mean, used as part of the instruction. So like this mandala, I mean, when you build a mandala, I mean, you have this base. So the base kind of represents the prior knowledge. And then on that, I mean, once you have all these different sand particles, and then, I mean, the image is a little bit misleading. So these two monastics who are building the mandala, I mean, they're actually the learners. So they are creating their own understanding. And then they're creating their own understanding based not just on their own, but also with other learners as well. So that's one of the key aspect of constructivism, which is, I mean, whatever knowledge that you're building, it needs to be built on the prior knowledge that the students come with. And as a teacher, I mean, your role is to help learners identify, I mean, what are these prior knowledges that students have. Sometimes, I mean, students might not be even aware of their own prior knowledge. So you need to find a way, I mean, when you begin an instruction, I mean, you need to find a way to capture those prior knowledges, prior experiences. Meena, do you want to add anything?
Well, one thing that Tenzin and I are trying to model is that we are asking you questions before we are telling you something. So that's the same idea of asking students to identify their prior knowledge and to recognize it first before we start building new ideas. So that's what we are trying to model as we are telling you this. Okay, so the second big idea is that once you have that foundational concepts identified, when you start building ideas on that, it's very important that we help learners think about the big ideas before we giving them facts. So if we think of this mandala pan set, right? We are building it from the bottom up. And those stones or precious gems that are used to decorate the pan set are only added after you build up the structure. And so this is an analogy of helping our learners, our students, first think about the foundational concepts, then building ideas, and then only giving them some facts. So it is tempting to tell students the facts and little bits of information, but they won't store that in long-term memory if they don't have some way to organize it in their mind. I think we're going to stay with this idea for a couple of slides. The next one is another poll. And in this poll, we're asking you to think from foundation, meaning from the bottom to facts at that top level, which of the following is the correct order? So if you think of these three options, A is that there are about 11,000 species of birds in the world. B, what are the characteristics of living organisms? And C, that we have evolution by natural selection. So these are the three options. And in the poll, how would you put the order from foundation, which is the bottom of that pan set, to the facts, which is the top of the pan set with those stones?
Okay, Kamala, can you start the poll? Second poll. Okay, here it is. I think 72% has voted, so 35 out of 47. So most of the people are voting for 3 and 6, these two options. Meena, we have some time. Do you want anyone to, if they want to share?
Sure. Yes.
Yeah.
Does anybody who would anybody like to share their reasoning for their answer? You can share what your answer is and explain.
You can just unmute and speak. I mean,
okay. Hello to all. Can I come in?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Can I give my feedback? Yeah. So I'm Tenzin from Ratu Monastery, and yeah, greetings to all. And then yeah, my answer would be number 3, B, C, and A. And why I chose the order like from the foundation to fact. So first I chose B because in my opinion, the foundation is to know what are the characteristics of living organism. So that's the most important thing. It is the foundation. And the next one is the evolution by natural selection. So C comes next because, like, you know, once we know the characteristics, then we go deeper. Then we go into the next level. And the third one is A, like, which is 11,000 species of birds in the world. So that becomes facts. So.
Thank you, Sundula. Thank you. Anyone who wants to talk about number 6, C, B, and A? Anybody who has responded C?
Shall I come in?
Yeah, please.
Yeah, can you see me?
Yeah, I can see. Can you just say your name and where you're from?
Yeah, my name is Tenzin and I am, like newly recruited teacher for Sarah J. So in this case, my answer is for 6 because I believe that let's take an example of a Darwin finch, in which first we know that in Darwin finches there are modification of different beaks of bird. So that is because of natural selection. The basis is through natural selection. Their beaks are in different sizes and all. So that is the characteristics of that bird, and because of that, there are many variation of birds that we see, like different Darwin finches birds. So am I making sense? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
yeah. That's my answer.
Yeah. Meena will be doing a debriefing after this. So
okay. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing.
Thank you. Okay.
Yes, maybe we can go to the next slide and I'll explain because okay, so the way that in a sense, the way that we heard both of these answers, I can see how people chose both of those options. But in biology, when we're thinking about characteristics of living organisms, we think of one of those characteristics is that organisms evolve. So that is why I think you were thinking of character states, which is which might be thinking about some phenotype that we're measuring. So I can see how you might have answered. People might think about that as a foundational, as the big idea. Here we were thinking when Tenzin and I thought of this example that I think in the ETSI textbooks, they describe 7 characteristics of living organisms. One of those is evolution. So if we first identify what are those foundational ideas that organisms have genes, they have cells, they can evolve, so all of those characteristics are sort of the foundational ideas. Only then we can dig a little deeper and think about evolution. And there are several mechanisms of evolution. So evolution by natural selection, evolution by mutation, evolution by gene flow, when organisms move from one population to another, evolution by genetic drift, maybe when suddenly we have a sudden decrease in the population and whatever genes happen to be left in that population are what are present and determining how the organisms will evolve. So there's many mechanisms of evolution. Evolution is one explanation for biodiversity in the world. And so an example, a fact of biodiversity is this fact that we've listed of, it's not quite 11,000. My husband he said 10,800. So almost 11,000 species of birds in the world. And so that example of biodiversity would be the fact. So if we give the facts to our students without helping them understand why it's important, they don't know how to organize those ideas. And so this is our main message, is helping students think about the big ideas on the bottom first. What are those foundational ideas? Then only they can start building the ideas. And it's very tempting if you find school children, they will, they recite facts. But that if we just recite facts, then it's likely to be forgotten. Those facts are not stored in long-term memory. So that is one point of our activity. And it looks like somebody's written in the chat, would it be more productive if we tell facts first and ask students for their explanation and then tell them the foundational concepts? And yes, there's some people who do. You can engage and excite students by telling them facts, to give them a reason for why they should want to learn. But as long as you help them anchor that or organize it with those foundational concepts, that's what's most important. It doesn't matter if you start by teaching foundation and then build up, or if you excite them by telling them some facts and work backwards. But what's most important is that you help them organize their ideas. Otherwise, it's the fact is a loose idea that has no place to go. Do you want to add anything, Tenzin?
No, I think because of time, I think I want to move on.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, so next we have another poll. So we want to give you, some of you who are more interested in physical science, think about a physics big idea. So here, I mean, it's the same kind of polling. I think poll 2 is, yeah, and poll 2. Oh, relaunch poll. Yeah. So this one, again, I mean, you're ordering from foundations to facts. So the A is law of gravitational force, and B is 4 forces of nature, and then C is gravitational acceleration of Earth is 9.8 meters per second square, which I think everyone knows. So how would you arrange these things from foundation to fact? I'm just quickly going to translate, I mean, in case it makes it easier for some of 당보디 텐슈기 텐짐드체 데네 자외기 슈크시드체 데네 세골레기 텐슈디 아니 오단 차기를 내셔라. 근데 이게 숨디 간데스 고림디게 있습니다. I think 50%, I think people are taking some time. I think they're thinking a lot. Okay, I'll stop now because I think 80% have voted so far. I think I'm gonna end it now and share the results. So I think most of you kind of, I mean, this one is quite obvious. So before we talk about, I mean, Earth's gravitational acceleration, we want to know about the general law of gravity, which is, I mean, in all bodies that have masses. But then, I mean, if you further go down, I mean, look at the foundation, then we look at, I mean, all these the 4 different forces of nature. So these are electromagnetic force, weak force, strong force, and the gravitational force. So these are the 4 fundamental forces, and on that we have gravitational force, and then we talk about the gravitational acceleration on Earth, so which might differ in different planets. That's how we want to organize from foundation to facts. Okay, so we'll go to the next slide. Yeah, I have this organized here from 4 forces of nature, and then the law of gravitational force, and then the Earth's gravity.
Yes, so here we were just recognizing that there are lots of different conceptual frameworks in that the learner is organizing in their mind. So that's why we have multiple pan sets here. Just remembering that helping students when they're learning some concepts in your class, they're also doing this, and you're introducing many foundational concepts and many types of big ideas. So really the job of the teacher is helping the learner organize their ideas, right? So just telling them is not enough. It's about giving them the time and the opportunity in class to organize their ideas. Otherwise, it's just on the left side, there's a picture of these gems and stones that don't have any organization. They're just laying there without being organized.
Yeah, and also, I mean, we have all these content areas that we are teaching. We have these 3 different units, so we are trying to bring all of them together, which Kelsey will be doing. So again, I mean, this is a good analogy of, I mean, how we can I mean, we can have like physics plate and the biology plate and the neuroscience plate, but how we can all put together. So I mean, the goal of the science education is to get a holistic understanding of the nature of reality. So, and then people, I mean, we have different mandalas being made here. So people might have different foundational or prior knowledge or prior experiences, since many of them are coming from, I mean, we are teaching in the monastic context. I mean, they have a lot of prior knowledge about the world. So I think, and based on that, I think they'll be building different, I mean, set of ideas that we teach them. Yeah. Okay, next.
Okay, so remember the first idea is that people are constructing their knowledge on their prior knowledge. The second big idea we shared was helping students organize their ideas in this conceptual framework. And this third big idea that Tenzin and I want to share is that learners or students, they need time to reflect on what they know. So we know what we know and we know what we do not know if we have time and opportunity to be metacognitive. So this opportunity to reflect on it. And so we'll give you an example of how you can teach this, but really this means that the teachers, even though you might be telling or saying something to your students, if they don't have the time to reflect on it, don't have the time to make sense of that meaning.
Yeah, so next, I think we are doing a breakout session. So before we break out, I just want to explain what we are going to discuss. So we'll be breaking down into groups of 5, and in some group it might be 3 or 4. So we have 10 minutes for everyone to do the discussion, and then I'll share a Google Doc in the chat. You can type in your responses. You can appoint one of your group members as the person responsible for writing the collective response. So, and then, so the prompt here is, in Buddhism, I mean, we talk about the 3 undesirable containers. I think many of you will be aware of this. So, I mean, in order to teach science, so what is how your role as a teacher, your role as an educator, how are you going to, overcome these challenges? So your student, might be the first container, which is upside down, the container which is which has a hole and the knowledge is not staying there, and then the container which is which has a smell in it, which is kind of contaminated. So in these 3, so you will have individuals, students who have all these, who falls into all these different 3 categories. So how would your role as a teacher, how would you overcome these challenges? So that's the prompt, and then we'll come back after 10 minutes. So I'll ask Karma to do the breakout room. And I think there are faculties here also. I think we can just stay in the main room. And then I'll see you after 10 minutes.
1 minute, I will do the breakout room.
And we'll be giving a 1-minute warning, and then after that, we'll pull you back into the main room here.
Is it breakout start or not yet?
Yeah, you can start it now.
I think I did. Join. 어, 기란수 저도 지나 되겠다.
Oh, let's come la.
어, 나마 될 누군다. 디 가르치면 나 셴발라 디치고요.
Ale re kisla come la sum chi pore.
아, 킨도 넘버 가르도.
Number 1.
당보 인설.
어, 원나 단데 셴발리 이게 갈라나 아니 도지 상보체 강아도 직된지 나만데 테슬lumbo. 코란도.
That's
아니
it.
이제 계속 시시했어요.
That's it.
그래서 건조 가시 디치는. 근주들 알레 근주 섬으로도 아티쇼 이 말에 가상이 가르칠라나 곱시 자여레 겐라소 에 아니 쿠쇼라소 야도아 텐진 자조 사이언스 콜로 곱시 자여레 아니 디 곱시 자조 이 펫 칼라워 테리 만다지 페제당게 나치 게서레 미상마 두문도 바타다 칠라 어 아니 키라조 디 치디아기 게 겐라 셴바지
알았어. 왜 저번에 터서로 톱 루서데.
하고
난다 라통 먼저 시우드라듯이. 그래시. 강아지들 가르쳐 돈디 집것도 하기 돈디네. 네.
근소도 안 하더래.
무슨 뭐?
숨바라 야야.
숨바래.
숨바라 셴바지.
अन्य शब्द वाला खर्च हो रहा है
게임
오 라마라.
어이.
나만 키라 델라 로바치야 콘솔라. 키란데 뮤트리스.
오야 sorry.
콘솔라 디치야. 어 니데 카르사 칼란 카상 곱시 자제 딱다 데.
넘버 2. 감사. 다 가르쳐 벌써.
what 기타가 보더 안되나?
고도.
이 하나디 같은 것도 하나디 커버디 파마 순이라 주랑을 파티션 통사 모카 부께다 추자조체 아니 우들 원도 좀 주체해요.
오케이.
디 디와디 되는 로즈라고 그래. 가서 아니 계시 ngaser tan internet ya boshram kisi dinido jinani kiragi da lobri chesagi kangza de pene kashi yamen ne kabuba da yamen ne shabdo yamen ne timachi ta dinigi kangza susu kiragi ni lapsa dinigi kangza dindido chagiyana ni kiragi tela 동네 가네치 오레세 파주들 아니 kiragi concept karlawe yete understand kanid logic ko gante tabsi da was challenge kanid logic was that tiwa dil tangore correct how does this related to your role as a teacher?
Yes, teacher.
What's that? So tiwa dil logic answer how does this tapena ne kabubajina ne kabachine manyingijina 야 텔라페빙 아주 지게시라 계시다 주님 만행지나 안다데라야 가르쳐 버렸다 페라 아니 소속을 합sem페나 뉴로사이언스 오시나 뉴로사이언스 기타 페 컨디에메 장나 아니 칼로르다 니 예덴로 카르카리에메 데니 로지 지시 오마레
너 답에 얘기했어 오라다
잠깐만
저도 고도.
고도
low come along
니데 카산데 카르사 곱시 자샤요데 베 상마 툭데샤 가르치나나 카시 이메일 셴바데 페제타야사라 니 뭐지 툭데샤 야야 계란도 데 뭐티네 제디야
that's all
아니라 직송다. 이거 센스.
그래서 나 근데 그래서 근데 니 숨도 쉬는데 그시다 나서 이제 나비가블라야 아니
그래서 얘들이 지셔야 이거 부부교수 가능성.
아니 나 먼저 말라비가블라야 아니 마직 냉경이문에 아니 직 된데게 그래서 교수님다 된경이 아니 직 냉경지 요바이나 답변나 직 다신랑 아주게 마티비가블라야 니 코드교 직 도난 큐니 미규지 여러다
네네.
다니 코드기 지요바이나 아니 코랑나 직 연결시리니 펜다 요마라 갈진나는 코랑다 장애 되바이메 당고니 니기펫 시디드서 말라 아니 가스슬라브나 양지 코랑이 암주나 주기 말아 딱 너랑도지나 간디로 지기여라바이나 운치당기레다 코랑솔라 삼삼 라비가블라 코랑솔 텐디도지 니 코디위에 텐디지 바이나 코랑솔 야랑지네 직 삼삼 까방드니 차주기에 니 삼삼 코랑솔 직 먼저다 차토지든데 Tenzin labigablaa ni khonaaso chik kharso lega dindila nyamshudo jechu ani djb gabla ni khonaaso dila kharso gota involved chagirwa an chabe gabla khonaaso ni dis sang ngola and they must mi mangbo kila susugi yang ching lang di gabla ya ani susu ine chik yoro ani djb gabla suni se dogorela ani rokwasi phende gore ta dindiro je khonaaso lega do go indiro je samsam yang chik semu gi sudu je ani khonaaso 다 코나스기 민디 왜 이내에 적도 들리도 질랑지는 도시기라 아니 양디 나랑이 섬술라니
네 다가세 다노 샵도라세야 노 니바데 로이나 다 탑시카리 제고 있어 타면서 주두치아래도 다돼 다가세 노 카바반로에는 다니라다 직송상된도 다직 야 이코직 베나니 카키안로에는 니 상에 탑시카르체 미세시로 다도노 치아 간실라 아니 양코 직 남사 아니 셈르 마샤 들어왔다 노 샵도란도 시카시나 다 셈르 마샤 마샤 케트데나 들 탑시도 카르체 있었다 셈르 반직 데모데 무시 그겐시 모니 다 컨트리 요서다 딩스 지두즈에도 왔다 말미시 칠라치면다
이제다 가래 아니 예 잠질라 당아도 가래 아 지단에 가래 안데 개개인이 다지 가래 안데 지다 튀어가 아니 가래 개개인 랑이 년에 지 가래 제 대와 대오스나 냐 가래 아니 로마 되게 지 근데 다 가래 개개인까지 내가 되게 제 장면 매워 다지 가래 아라 롭된 나로라 그 가리 주자 가리는 개개인이 제 장면 매워 그래서 개개인이다 가두이나 지 개개인이 셰셰 바데와 도스나 아니 다 가래 안데 로마 되게 다지 하는 로마 되게 녀도 차야다 다 계지 가래 한들 계지 로정도 테스트 칼로 되지 한들 테스트 지와 도스나 가래 하는 네 샵되와 도지 네 샵되와 도지 차이 되중도 차이 내가 용도 아니 언제 이렇게 칼로 되지 한데 개개인이 셰되어 마세 냠도 지 카라에 되게 밑된 투나로 다 계지 가래 한 따지 제 여버 도스나 직답 되고 안에 직된 투에 버체 아니 야나메나 가르치 따지 시에게 다 튕겨도 도스나 아니 한달 롱에 다 비디오스 거도 시켜서 땡투와 도스나 아니 대시 다인데 인사를 셈랑에 투에 도스 그게 섬주
다 고자토는도 세컨스 고자토레샤
broadcast it.
I think people are coming
So
back.
for next time, I think it might be good to kind of share the Google document here in the main room or in the main session.
Yeah,
And that way they can access the document and then break them out in small groups.
That's a
with
good
what we
idea.
have just experienced.
yeah.
Sonam, what did you, I just I didn't hear when you said it would.
To give the link to if you do a breakout, a Google Doc, put the link in the chat before they break out.
Yeah.
And when you share the link with us, Robin, but I'll mention in the email when we communicate, it has to be, the link has to be accessible, which means they do not need to get permission from you. It should be like accessible to everyone who has the link.
And also you have to go and make sure that they can all edit it. Otherwise they can only view and they can't put any. I've learned that from my teaching on Zoom.
Assign them as editors, right?
Yes.
Or collaborators, maybe.
Yes.
I would like to give 1 minute to each group. So whoever wants to speak from their group. Yeah,
I think, Tenzin, if it goes a little longer, I think it's fine. I mean, but just check with the students since they are here, and usually because last time when we checked with them, they said they're fine since they're up late. Okay. So I think just check with them and also see how you guys feel.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, because group 1, because we don't have numbers, it's difficult to ask. So anyone? To do
So should I go with mine?
Yeah.
So I represent group number 10. So in my group is Rangdu Rinpoche, Lepa Gyatso, and Pinzo from Seraje. So we are 4 people over there. So initially we were 6, then Gelhapa and Chirindroma just went off, vanished away. So we were 4, and what we discuss is the most important part is to understand the student. Since we have the group of the students we have in the monasteries are quite large, so it's quite possible that we will have all 3 types of examples over here. So in that respect, you have to reflect on yourself also, your pedagogy, your method, and you shouldn't stick to one method. Understanding the psychology of the students, of different types of students, you have to adopt different types of methods. So that should be most ideal in our case. Since we can't go with the individual, we have to attend the group. So I think that's our gist of what we have discussed.
Hello, can I go?
Yes, please.
Yes, I think I was in group number 6. In our group, I think we have 5. That was Ring, Trashilamu, and also 2 other. So we discussed about these 3 issues. The first one is vessel upside down, which means the students actually not listening the lecture, the teaching, and everything. For that, we thought that maybe sometimes when we give teaching, actually the class should not be like a teacher-based, lecture-based orientated teaching, but also more some kind of student-orientated activities, and students, let them to do some activities. Through that way, they may start engaging and discuss, and through that way, they will become more attentive to the lectures and to the content that we are discussing in the classroom. And also, we thought it is important also to know the students' level, their education level. And based on that, and we should deliver the content suitable to their mental disposition and their understanding of the material that we are delivering. And the second one, I think it is more like a leaking vessel, which means some kind of the student actually listening the information, but also just not keeping the materials in their mind, not able to retain their mind. I thought maybe for these, it is good to go through from foundation to the fact that you just introduced to us. And also sometimes if the student's mind is very much wandering to every direction, whatever thought they're just thinking about, sometimes that we said that it is also useful if the teacher not just go through the one flow, but also sometimes use some different strategy to give us some kind of settle, and through that way we can bring back the students' mind wandering and to to bring their focus. I thought that is the kind of a solution that we have discussed in our group. And also the third one, which is the vessel filled with lots of full of stinks, bad smells, which refers to, I think, student who can get the information but also not take it in the right way. Maybe sometimes take all the materials in a wrong direction. And for this solution, we thought maybe it is good for the students, to show some kind of respect and also ask some very simple questions that he or she can respond, and also try to think more deeper level and apply some kind of logics so that he can understand the purpose, and also he or she can actually relate the information for the day-to-day lives, necessaries and all of these things. So this is pretty much the gist what we discuss in our group, I guess.
Thank you so much, Kishi Sangula. That's very helpful. Thank you so much. Anyone from other groups?
Hello. Can I say something?
Yes, please.
From groups. Okay. Thank you. So we are from group 7, and what we discussed is that from the 3 vessels, the first vessel, what we discussed is not how to like how to solve this problem, but what to do to solve this problem. So the first vessel, which is upside down, what we discussed is that we understood the upside down vessel as students who have lack of interest, who doesn't show much interest on the subject that the teacher is teaching, and for that the teacher have to do whatever it is possible for the student to make the student take interest in the studies, like maybe making the class fun or whatever. And then the second vessel, that is with a leak that has got too many leaks, and for that what we understood is that the leak vessel represents that the students understood what it is taught, but then easily forgets that. So for that, the teacher may have to tell it again and again, or whatever it is to do, so that the teacher don't forget what it's taught. And the third vessel, which is the dirty vessel, what we understood is that the students may know that they've understood the information, but then they've they've got misinformation, like the theory of evolution, where people usually misunderstood that humans come from apes. So for that, the teacher will have to do whatever it is, so that to make the information clear, so that they can understand that, so that they can make that the students are not misinformed. So this is what we discussed, like what to do. So then the method of how to do that depends on the students itself. The students vary from the age group. It can be age like the students. It depends on who the students are. They can be adults, they can be students, like a small child, some small kids. So the method could be different, but what to do is what we have discussed about. So thank you.
So much, Rapkala. That's very helpful. So I think if any additional things they want to add for each of these different containers or vessels.
Group number 8, may I speak?
Yes, go ahead.
Hello. Yes, our group has discussed about the first 2 utensils. The first one is the closed one. So we felt that those students need more help. So for that, we have to first explore their weaknesses, and then introducing topics by not only learning through books, by introducing more and more activities, then introducing simple knowledge, then bring them to the complex. So it would be helpful for the needy students. And the second one is having holes. So those students learn something but tends to forget. For that, we have remedials like giving more notes, assigning assignments, then let them do presentations. And the third one, we haven't got enough time to discuss. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I couldn't see who is speaking there, but
okay.
Yeah.
Can you hear?
Yes.
Okay. I'm Kechok. So I don't know the group number, sorry. But in our group, we have Kishingong, Nobu, and Tagla. science teacher from Serame, and also we have Tenzin Chanchu from Serache, and then Derabu, I don't know. Then as a role of teacher, we have, if you have some three kind of students, the first one is one who is, upside down is represent simple as like a note listening, right? So for that, we have to make them some engagement, like we can start with some kind of activity in the class, make them more engagement in this classroom, like activity and fun activity, whatever the activity involves, that we can engage the student, showing more interest in study. The second one is represent that you are not able to retain the informations, the leaking vessel. So for that, first we can also understand his experiential knowledge, a pure knowledge, prior knowledge about any subject matters, and then we can share with other students, make them more interactive with other students, so that we can build his more interest in the subject matter, what is subject matters. And third one is maybe some students have different wrong informations, information that is not like desirable. For that, we can make him interested in the subject through experiment. Just show some experiment. You can show some proof, evidence. Then that it helps him to retain or help him to remove many of his pre-concept or some misinformation that he has. This is how we can make them engage in the classroom.
Can I, if I may? Oh, I'm sorry. I think we're taking too much time. Is it fine?
No, go ahead. Go ahead. Please share your ideas.
Sure. I think my perspective will be a little different from rest of the world, rest of the teachers here. What I see myself in this as a role of my teacher is that as a first container, describe me as a person who is focused on my own work related to subject. And I'm trying to block away all the unwanted materials so that I can focus only on my students related to subject. Okay. The second one, the leakage one. Sometimes I do learn a lot of stuff from my students, but sometimes I lose away some of the information. I couldn't portray it to the students. So in a way, it's a loss of information, like the loss of water here. The third one is that, but I'm led to so much information that later on it's of no use. It's just rot inside. So that's my perspective, my role as a teacher, I would say. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lawang, for sharing. I think, yeah.
Do I have?
Go ahead.
Okay. I don't know the group number, but in my group there are like Gishe Tobdinla and Gen Sringla and Reasonable. So we discussed on the first two vessels and for the first upside down vessels. So some students they never listens to the topic whatever you are teaching. So for them, we really need to make them interesting in any way, whatever way, to students to get excited about the lessons. And the four broken vessels that sometimes we teach them, but some students show interesting, but they forget it and they don't know it second day. For them, for examples, we need to teach in different ways. For example, if we are teaching physics, we may teach them, generally we teach them with maths, but some students may be so difficult to understand the physics. So we can approach them with another methods, like approaching them, teaching them with philosophy. So for some students, like teaching physics with using philosophical way, then it will be helpful for those students who don't understand maths to understand physics. So, and that is it.
Thank you, Wandela.
Thank you.
So Tenzin, should we, I have taken a lot of notes. I think that Would you, should we allow more discussion, or what would you like to do for time?
I mean, I'm fine in terms of time. It's up to the.
Okay. If there's another group that would like to share.
Pick one last group.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hello. Can you hear me?
Yes, please share.
Get started.
Yeah. I belong to group number 1. In our group, we have Doji Sangbo from Kandeshanse and Tenzin Sonam from Teshilumbo and Ketudela. So from our understanding, the 3 pictures signifies, the first one signifies the students who do not show any interest. The second one signifies the ones who are very slow learner. And the third one shows the one which are troublemakers. So in order to encounter all these problems while taking classes, we have taken some measures. So for the first one, I think the persons who do not show any interest, we need to have make some different methods or pedagogies of teaching to make them understanding the things better. So if the problem is worse that they are not showing any interest, then we need to have some psychological counseling to encounter that. So for the second one, I think slow learner, I think most probably from the teacher side, what we can do is we can take some extra classes for them to have a better understanding of the subject. And the last one, I think troublemaker, the one who disrupt the classes, right? So I think in order to incorporate these types of students into the learning, I think one of the method is that we need to adopt different pedagogies of teaching so that they can better understand. And since in a class we have students from different kinds of background and different set of knowledge, so I think the most important thing, like Pasana is highlighted, is that we have to adopt different methods of pedagogy for make them understanding the things better. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tenzin. Thank you, La. I think, Meena, do you want to?
Yes, I think I heard, first of all, I have to just compliment the participants. You've done an excellent job of really thinking deeply about this question that Tenzin and I have posed. And maybe I think even the next slide, we can go to this and I'll explain what I think are some 5 big ideas that you have all shared. You've all recognized that just telling students information is not enough. That's what you have demonstrated. And we know that teaching is about facilitating learning. And what I heard from all of your feedback that you sort of, I found 5 big ideas that you shared. One is that the teacher must value the knowledge that the student is bringing to the classroom to keep them engaged. I heard that because motivation might be a problem, a lack of motivation. I heard that making the information relevant by helping them make connections to their own lives or maybe other content areas might increase the motivation. A third idea you said was engaging them using different pedagogies and different ways of teaching, either through laboratory activities, through problem solving, through breakout groups. Look how engaged you were by doing the breakout small group work, through maybe writing some notes, drawing some pictures. So a lot of pedagogies using different pedagogical strategies will keep them engaged. The other thing is giving opportunities for rehearsal and practicing the information. That leaky bucket, you said they may not be retaining the information. So giving lots of opportunities. One time is not enough. Just like you are learning any chanting or you're learning music, that's my music stand behind me. So when I'm making music, I have to practice a lot. So same thing with any kind of learning is rehearsal. And then finally, in large groups, some people are more engaged, but some people are quiet in a large group. And so the breakout rooms were really for us to model the value of doing small group work. And so thinking about even in debating, you start in small groups and then the groups get larger. Think about these ideas of how you can facilitate learning and not just think that you're telling the information. Tenzin, is there something I've missed? I've tried to capture and summarize all of the responses, but maybe there's something I missed.
No, I think you kind of summarized very well. So, yeah, I don't want to add anything now. Yeah. Okay. I mean, and these images, I mean, it's kind of describing the first image is describing, it's more like the instructor is at the center and is just giving out information to the students. And then in the second scenario, I mean, it's the teacher actually facilitating all these information or making sense among the students, not just, I mean, of course, with the facilitator. Yeah. So,
would you like me to write those 5 ideas in the chat? Would that be helpful?
Yeah, this is recorded. So,
oh, okay.
Yeah. I mean, there'll be, I mean, you can just type in there maybe. Yeah.
Okay. As we go to the
right, so maybe you don't have time.
Yeah, I will. Let me talk about this next 2 slides, and then I will write those 5 ideas in the chat. So, these next 2 slides are to help you think about what is your role as a teacher coming into the classroom. So if you imagine before you, if the classroom is that box with the dashed line, imagine before you go into the classroom, you should think about how people learn. So that is what the teacher is doing to prepare. And then when you are in the classroom, you should share, if you share with your students what their target is, what is the learning objective or their learning target, then both the students and the teacher know what the purpose of that class is. And what the teacher does is that he or she uses instructional strategy, that's another way of saying pedagogy, as well as some curricular materials, right? The textbook or maybe some slides or whatever activities. So you're using both the materials and strategy to teach. And you're teaching the lesson, and then you collect some information from the students, maybe through discussion, like we've just done, maybe through polling or quizzes, or maybe through examination. We collect information about the learning outcomes. And then the teacher in the process can identify if maybe the learners have some other conceptions or other ways of understanding the content, and then can maybe modify in the process, go back and modify what is the learning target. And sometimes the teacher may have to reteach something in a slightly different way if the students are not understanding, right? So it's really about the role of the teacher is to facilitate the learning. And really that important piece that I'm trying to highlight is that we use the assessment information to inform how we can better help the learners, not just so that they take the exam and then go away. Really, it's collecting that information so we can identify how we can better help the students. Okay, and so any questions about this slide?
Okay, I mean, I just want to mention, I mean, so I mean, all these components of effective teaching, I think we'll be covering in the next 3 years. So we'll be talking about learning how we can create these learning goals, what are the different instructional strategies, and how to assess the learning of your students, and then how can you change your learning, I mean, your instructional pedagogy. So these are some of the things that we'll be covering in the coming, I mean, hopefully next summer when we meet together. Yeah. And then we'll be sharing the detail of the plan, a little detail of the plan at the end of this presentation.
So this slide is just trying to help you understand that the process of teaching is actually very similar to the process of science. You've learned about scientific ways of knowing, and this is really quite similar. So if we think, instead of thinking about how people learn, if we think this is similar to knowing scientific theories and foundational scientific knowledge, we must identify that before we construct a hypothesis or research questions. In order to test those hypotheses, we must think of methods, materials and methods and treatments. So similar to thinking about pedagogy and curriculum. Then in order to test that, we actually collect data similar to when we're collecting assessment information from students. We use those data to determine if we've answered our research question or accepted or rejected our hypothesis. And just like a teacher is saying, okay, have I met the learning target for the students? In the process, you know, maybe we're not identifying alternative conceptions, but we might troubleshoot, maybe the protocol for the experiment needs to be refined, or perhaps we need to test an alternative hypothesis, okay? And so this is this iterative process. It's very cyclical. So think of your teaching as very similar to the process of actually doing science. And so what a lot of new teachers might forget is why we are collecting assessment information. So this is really important. We're not asking students to take an examination or do homework for no reason. We should use that information to determine if we've actually met our learning target, so that it's a cyclical process.
Thank you. So yeah, I just want to mention here, I mean, since this is kind of going through the scientific process, so maybe, some of the lay graduate Tibetan science teachers, as they do their teaching, it might be interest, whatever discipline they are teaching, they want to focus on doing some kind of a assessment or research in your teaching. This is a good opportunity to explore how people in this monastic context, how they are learning certain topics. So even the faculties here also would be willing to, help you in any way possible. So.
And somebody in the chat made a very good point. Actually, the instructional strategy and the curriculum are connected to one another. They're not independent. So they are associated with one another. So yes, maybe I should add one more two-way arrow between curriculum and instruction. That's a good point.
Okay.
Okay, is this me? Okay.
Yeah, so at the beginning, you wrote about, how you define learning. So we would like you to take a minute to write down after this workshop, how would you define learning? And if your ideas have changed after, during this short interaction that we had with you. Just take a minute and then we'll move on. Okay, Meena.
Yes, so I've wanted to tell you, I put the 5 big ideas in the chat box, but there's actually one other idea that, I think is really important. So the 6th idea is letting, if we want to encourage students to engage in self-reflection, because some of this content is so new for them, the science content, I'm a big proponent of using writing, because the writing allows the students to see what their ideas are and to reflect on them. So if I put the 5 big ideas, I'm going to add one idea, add one more idea, and that is writing to promote reflection. Let's see if I can talk and type. Okay, so this teaching tip is, this is a strategy that I have used in the teaching in the ETSI classes, as well as my own classes. At the beginning of the day, I ask students to write down the response. Like today, we asked you, what is learning? So we asked you in the very beginning to write down your ideas when you first come into the classroom, and then to leave the second page, leave it blank so that you can come back at the end of the class and answer the same question after the class, and now using the new knowledge that they have learned. And because sometimes the prior knowledge and the new knowledge sometimes may be a little bit different and they challenge one another, I asked the students on the bottom of the page to identify any discrepancies or between the prior knowledge and the new knowledge. So allowing students to just write down how they might resolve this confusion. And the confusion may not be resolved in that one class period, but now the student has identified where there's some confusion. Otherwise, it's hard for them to ask their classmates or the teacher, where they're confused. So that resolution on the bottom, I want you to know that it may not be resolution in that one class period. And here are some examples. Now, I don't read the Tibetan, but so I don't know exactly, but I know that I gave the prompt. So on the left side, we were asking someone about where life originates. And here, the reason I think this is so important is that this student asked if he could do some drawings and add some pictures, which I think is very important, because sometimes you have ideas in your mind and you're not sure how to actually express them. So, I encourage students to draw their ideas. On the second side, we asked at the end of the class period, where does life originate? And then the student answered again, using the new knowledge. So I can see in there's words RNA, DNA, protein, because he's written in some in English. But in the bottom right corner, what we then asked is where was there differences of ideas? So how can you resolve these?
Yeah. So yeah, the first, on the left part, I think is asking students to be aware of their own prior knowledge. So once they before you actually give the scientific explanation, and then on the right hand, then you give the, there are different instructions that you can, methods you can do, and then you can give the scientific explanation at the end of the day. Then you can ask them how they reconcile their prior understanding with the scientific explanation that they received. So that's how, that's kind of representing what we showed you earlier, the resolution. So that's one way of, how you can design your instruction.
And here you can see, and sometimes if the monastics know some English, I encourage them to write the ideas in either Tibetan or English. And so here is an example of a student who is resolving his ideas and describing his ideas, which were, maybe not complete resolution, but in the process. And so he wrote these in English. And I think this is, if they feel comfortable, that's okay, that's good to let them write however they want. So this is just to sort of the conclusion and give you an idea of the roadmap for the next 3 years, is really starting out by really focusing on how people learn, so that we can think about how we design our pedagogy. And if you see on the left-hand side, we start, the way the design is to always start with that. So always starting with how people learn and thinking about how we can then develop lesson plans. That's the plan for what you are going to teach and how you will teach. And thinking about inquiry-based lesson plans, which is about getting the student to ask questions and then to create that motivation to learn. We were talking about the motivation with the upside down bucket. How can we create that bucket? How can we turn it the other way? It's about allowing students to ask questions and then helping them develop the tools and understand the content to answer those questions, which is connected to the research work that Nicole Gerardo and Robin will be doing, is thinking about the role of a research mindset. And so on the right-hand side are just much more details about how to make things relevant for the cultural context of the students, and thinking about providing some tools. On the very, very bottom, it says designing inquiry-based lesson plans. You know, our plan is to give you some tools to help you do this in your planning. Tenzin, did I miss anything?
No, I think that's, so I mean, each year, I mean, it's the same team. I mean, knowing your students, how you can support student learning, and then how you can design lessons. And then, but each year we'll be going, covering different domains within each of these topics. So that's our plan for the next 3 years. And now I think we're coming towards the end. So, I mean, reflecting back on what you learned today, I just want you to, I mean, you can start with any of these words. I realize, I'm thinking, I'm surprised, I learned, I feel, I hope. Whatever you want to use, you can start with these prompts, and then in your chat, I mean, you can learn, I mean, if you learn something new, you just write, I learned that, I don't know, it's important to motivate students who are like that, the vessel that is upside down. I mean, I'm just giving you, so you can write anything you want. So just share whatever you want. You can type in your chat box here. Yeah, this is a fill in the blank. So I feel, when you type what you feel right now, and then if you are thinking something, then I'm thinking about whatever.
Yeah, so you have to finish the sentence. I feel, what did you feel? There we go.
So Gishangao Nobula says, I feel that the teacher has to be very creative to make the students engage more. I learned foundation before facts. Tenzin Hawar from Kachan. And if you want, you can type in Tibetan. I can briefly translate. So if you are more comfortable typing in Tibetan, that's fine.
Can they do that in Zoom? Can you type in Tibetan?
Yes. Geshe Wangden says, I realize we can use many traditional ways to teach science. Doje Sangbo Shadze Monastery says, I hope my teaching will benefit my student in near future. Tenzin from Serache, I feel job of teacher is to talk to students' heart rather than just updating knowledge. Yeah, thank you for all the wonderful comments, and I'll just wait for 30 few seconds and then Tukten Seyala says, I realize learning is knowing something from experiencing, for example, attending this kind of webinar. Thank you all. Tenzin Chuang from Chanju Chuling, I felt that teacher would be more engaged with students with a lot of strategies. I realized that teaching is also learning with critical process involved. Yeah. Thank you so much all for joining this. And we have kept a question answer session at the end, but I'm concerned about everyone's time here. It's quite late, so if you have something pressing question, then maybe you can ask.
Yes, the importance of giving time to ask questions. This is a very important point.
Anyone has any question? Yeah, while we wait, I just want to respond to one of, I mean, earlier response to the 3 vessels. I mean, he was relating to him as a teacher. So I think that's also important because, I mean, even in the United States, I mean, there are a lot of faculties who are very not responsive to these new methods of teaching. So they are just sticks to their own way of teaching. So they might be more like those containers that are upside down. So I think that as a instructor, I think we need to be more, I think we are all learners. So I'm also learning, you are all also learning. And at the same time, you're also teaching. So I think we need to be open to new ways of teaching, and that's I mean, I think it was a good to reflect on the role as a teacher. I think so. I like that connection.
And I think another point is, you know, reading some of the chat, there's no right way to teach. There's no right or wrong way. I think as teachers, you know, we are also exploring new strategies. It's about helping the learners and finding what makes sense for them. So I don't think that we are saying there's only one way to teach. So if you want to use the facts to excite and engage the students and then work backwards, you know, maybe you can do that. So it's really about what is most meaningful for your students.
I have a question here from Tenzin, Sonam, not me. How to make students excited when coming for next class? Meena, do you want to?
Yeah, oh, I can answer, or we can think about it. I think if we make things, if we pose questions and ask students, you know, to think about something, hopefully, and not answer it at the end of the class, maybe they'll be excited to come to the next class to think about, okay, how can we answer this? So creating some curiosity. Actually, we didn't say this, I think we were implying this, that if your students are curious, then they will be motivated. So if we help create that curiosity, and it doesn't matter if they're 5 years old or 45 years old, doesn't matter, you know, we can all be curious about something and wonder. And so I think that is important.
Yeah, and if you remember the first slide that we showed, I mean, the science can be in different contexts. So I think if you can bring some examples that are local and that are relevant to the students' lives, and that I think will excite some of the students to make connection to the content rather than just, I mean, giving the dry content. So if you try to contextualize to the students' life, so that would be, that would make them more excited and engage in the learning. Okay, so I don't see any more questions. So I think.
Can I add something?
Yes, please.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, I thought maybe, you know, introducing a meditation in a class, you know, some kind of breathing meditation for 5 minutes from the beginning of class might be very helpful to all the three, you know, problems.
Thank you, Kishisangula.
Yeah, just wanted to share that. Yes.
Yes, I think just to settle the mind so that people are in the mindset for learning.
Yeah. So I mean, we have a lot of distractions nowadays with all the gadgets and all the technologies. So students are always distracted. So if you don't try to make the content, I mean, relevant and interesting, they may not make any connection or they may not learn anything. So I think maybe giving, I think we, in our C learning, we have some grounding practices where we can ground based on our body experiences. So maybe we can integrate some of those in the pedagogy lessons when we meet actually.
Okay, I have, if I may say, I have a suggestion here. We have exceeded our scheduled time. It's 12 here, and then over there it's 10:30. I understand that our participants are very understanding and accommodating, but I think I would suggest we end the session here. And Meena, would you like to say your final words, please?
I think our final words are that there's no right or wrong way to teach, but that we encourage you to keep thinking about how you can facilitate the learning of your students and integrate really culturally relevant pedagogies, you know, such as perhaps analytic meditation or debate, and we'll be discussing this in the next few years. So thank you for being so engaged.
Yeah, thank you everyone. And then after this, I'm sending a brief survey that you can, you can share your experience with this session. And I want to thank everyone for participating. I think everyone engaged very well in the discussions. So we are very glad to see everyone. So thank you, everyone. Yeah, and the last slide that I want to share.
I want to.
So
go ahead, Tenzin, please.
Maybe the new science graduates, maybe some of them might not be aware. So we have this Emirate Tibet Science pedagogy.com website where we have all the resources from our 6 years of teaching. And then this also has the science terminologies that are translated. So you can use these resources. And also there are all these test works for the last 6 years. Yeah, that's all I have. Thank you.
Right. So I want to say thank you very much to everyone here, especially to Dr. Meena, Balgopal, and Dr. Tenzin Sonam. I mean, this was such a great session, and I deeply appreciate and want to say thank you to the participants for your timing and for your understanding. And you guys really did a good job with the training and all that. Everything went very well. I also want to say thank you to Karma, who has been working, behind the scene, making all, taking care of all the, technical support. So this was a great session. Let's take I'm going to take a screenshot of the session, today's session. Could I see Meena? I don't see Meena. Okay, there you are. Okay, here we go. Okay, this is just in case when we have the next newsletter, we'd like to put up about the webinar that we have had. Once again, thank you all so much. I just don't have enough words to express my appreciation of how you guys have done. This was such a great session. And until our next session, which is on Friday. Take care, everyone. Goodbye.
Thank you. 정말로 자고 나오르시 아니 심전하고